Welcome to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us with Brandon Handley. Because you're already great at everything else, why not fatherhood too?
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Brandon Handley. I am your host. I'm on here today with Ben Nelson. He is the author of Young Dad's Guide to Pregnancy. It's his first book in a number of books that he's planning on doing. He became a father when he got married. His wife had a child already, and he's since then had a few children of his own. He's a veteran of the USAF. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science and an associate's degree in intelligence studies. He's a veteran of the USAF. But even though I already said that, we had a great conversation. We had a lot of fun with this. His story is spot on with being a young dad's guide to pregnancy. If you are about to have a child, then I highly recommend this book. If you've already had children and you have another one on the way, and it'll actually give you kind of chuckles. I know that I read the book and I was certainly entertained, and a lot of memories came back as I read through this book. Memories of what it was like to go through pregnancy with my wife, and he has a couple stories on his that were actually a little scary, and he talks about going through that and getting through it. Scary just in terms of situations that aren't always ideal, and it's not always easy. So first of all, I want to say thanks again for having him, for Ben, for being on the show. Thank you so much. Thanks for going through. I think we did about 10-15 minutes of the show, and I realized I hadn't even pressed record. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my ultimate nightmare. But he was gracious enough to work with me through that. Somewhere in the middle, we lost audio. Had to fix that. You don't need to know all the stuff that happened to go on with it, but we had a lot of fun. So the cameras are going to switch a little bit. Audio may switch some. And just know that that's what happened. But we worked through it. We had fun doing it, and that really is fatherhood for the rest of us. These things happen, and they did. It was fun. Make sure you check out his book. I'll have some links to the podcast and that in the podcast notes. Make sure you check him out. Make sure you reach out to him and say, hey, and thanks for being on the show. Let him know that he was of service to you by being on the show and sharing the information that he has in the book. I mean, it's not too expensive, so for anybody out there that's interested, go check it out. It's definitely worth it. If you have not gone over to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us to sign up for the weekly mailer, fatherhood tips coming to your front door. Can't beat it. You can't beat it. I'm only going to be sharing stuff that I think can help you. I'm going to go looking for stuff once a week. I'll look all throughout the week, actually, for just whatever. You know me, I'm always looking to be a better father, doing what I can for fatherhood, and I'll share what I can find. I'm just learning, just like you're learning, and sharing what I can. So make sure you sign up for that, and if you haven't gone over to iTunes, make sure you head on over there. Give us a 5-star rating. Why not? Can't hurt. Unless, of course, you don't feel like it's worth a 5-star rating. If you don't feel like it's worth 5 stars, head on over. Send me an email to brandon@fatherhoodfortherestofus.com and let me know what you think, what we could do to improve the show to get it to a 5-star rating for you. I'm not saying that that'll happen, but I'm saying that if it makes sense, we'll work on it. And that's all we can do is work to improve. And I'm trying to think of the finalies. If there's anybody out there who's interested in joining the private Facebook group, head on over to our private Facebook group, and you'll be able to join in a group of like-minded men who are all out there making an impact in the world and trying their best to be awesome dads and bring good into this world. You'll join us there, and if groups aren't your thing, give us an opportunity to maybe have a one-on-one conversation. You can schedule some time one-on-one, and I can try and help you get you from point A to point B. Get you to maybe you're having troubles with making the next step, and you're curious how that happens. Give me a call. Or sign up. I've got a webpage that you can sign up. You can go to reconstruct.brandonhandley.com. That'll also be in the show notes, and reach out to me. I'm always glad to talk. That first call, first cup of call, whatever. Let's just talk. Let's see if we can't be of service to each other. See if I can't help you through it. And that is gonna wrap this up. And guys, enjoy this episode. It's a great one.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Brandon Hanley. I am on today with Ben Nelson. He is a devoted father of 4. He became a father upon marrying his wife Emily in 2008. He continued to grow his family while working minimum wage jobs and attending college. He understands firsthand the struggles that each dad goes through. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science and an associate's degree in intelligence studies. He's a veteran of the USAF, having served in multiple operations, including the Operation Enduring Freedom. Ben, thanks for being on here today with us, and thanks for doing a double take because I forgot to press record.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. So on the first take, we talked about what's going on that's awesome in your life, and let's hear it a second time.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely something that's going awesome in my life is I have a newborn, and he's just great. He's providing me with all kinds of new adventures that I didn't think I'd ever be able to have again. This is my 4th, and he's been really fun to have around.
Right on. And it's Ezra, right? Ezra?
Yeah,
Ezra. And so the reason you and I connected, we connected through Instagram. Like I was saying earlier, there's all kinds of it's fun. There's a huge dad culture. It's a really big dad culture going on right now, and I think it's just pretty awesome that I feel like you and I are on a similar wave into like this dad movement, fatherhood movement. It's kind of like what I call it. And right before I realized I didn't hit record, I think you were talking a bit about the dad culture. Let's pick that up there, and we'll wrap everything else back in.
Okay. Yeah. We were just talking a little bit about how this culture seems to be, and it's the same for moms too, but we're talking specifically about the dad side of it now. So for any moms that might be listening, there's this culture of parents in general that, you have to be perfect. You have to have everything figured out, your life plan and, your kid, if you don't have your kid going to like a Montessori school or a private school or something, I mean, it's everything, breast milk over formula and just all these different things. And the young dad's guide, I mean, how many times that's the book that I wrote, I mean, how many times do we say, I wish there was just a guidebook to help somebody through that? And that's essentially what that is to help, hey, this is a realistic, no sugarcoating, no trying to hide, what I did to make me look like a better person. This is just straight up, this is what I did while my wife was pregnant, good,
Right.
bad, and ugly.
Right.
And, this is what you should do based on that and what you shouldn't do based on that.
Right. Well, I mean, so that's right. The book is Young Dad's Guide to Pregnancy, and this is going to be the first in a series. And you started off in the perfect place, right, with pregnancy. Where else can you start from, aside from there? Because I think that after you get past that initial pregnancy phase, and you've got the children, you've already forgotten kind of that whatever that 9 months has already happened to you. And you were saying that you had your 4th, your wife became pregnant after a difficult period of trying to become pregnant, and now is the best time for you to write it as you were going through it. And then the other aspect that we were talking about is that the reaction that you initially had to finding out that she was pregnant with the 4th child. And let's just talk about that again real quick.
Yeah, so she had just graduated cosmetology school. She had just opened, well, we hadn't technically opened it yet, but we had just put a down payment on a salon. We were going to open that up, and she was going to start her own business and start doing that because all of her kids were in school. And then we were just sitting in the car, and she pulled out her phone and gave me this present. I opened up the present, and it was a pregnancy test, and she was recording my look of horror as I opened it up. Just, I mean, going through my mind, it was just, shock. I was like, well, what the heck are we gonna do? I mean, it was a minimum $12,000 for the lease on this little office inside of a building, and it was just all I could think about was, what the heck am I gonna do? Like,
Right.
I don't have any idea.
Right.
And she was just, she was pretty upset about it, but
Your reaction.
we all recovered, pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, so it's true, right? So when we first hear about the pregnancy, it can be, I think, two things, right? Like, in my case, my wife, the first pregnancy was super simple, no problems, no issues, and then two miscarriages in between, my second child being born, and when the first one goes so easy, you start, you think, why isn't this, the second one should be so easy? And then when the second one kind of goes in a bad direction, you're like, oh, okay. And the third one, the third conception didn't go through in such a good direction, and then and then it's almost hard to get excited, and so
Yeah.
it's almost hard to, you're almost, now you're like, you want to support your wife, but like you also know that she's like terrified about whatever's going on too. So you want to be terrified with her too, to show that you're emotionally supporting her. But I mean, you talk a bit about that in the book, about being supportive, and talk a little bit about how that support is really necessary, even right from the beginning.
Well, I mean, even like what you were just saying, I mean, you want to be terrified because you have no idea what's going on. I mean, nobody has, even with medicine the way it is, you can't just, at least as far as I know, you can't sit there and say you're going to have a miscarriage or you're not going to have a miscarriage from
Right.
early on. Uh, and I mean, it is terrifying the whole time, and that's not even just through the pregnancy. That's through the whole life of the kids so far. I'm still, I mean, kids get sick, and I'm sitting there freaking out in my mind, but I've got to look strong in certain cases, and the support goes the other way too. There's sometimes where I've not been able to be as strong as I wanted to. Uh, my daughter was, I think she was less than 2, maybe 18 months or so, and it was the first time I had done that portion of being a dad, and I was just terrified. She had like pneumonia, if I remember right, and we were in the ER, and
Wow.
I mean, it was me breaking down, and my wife was supporting me.
Wow.
So I mean, it's that, it's almost like it's not an absence of fear, it's just that,
Not knowing.
you just embrace the fear and you say, okay, for now, I'm going to look like I'm a solid rock so that I can be there for her.
Right.
Because with the pregnancy, she has no idea what's going on with her body for the most part. There's changes and aches and pains and sickness, and I mean, you're normal for the most part, so
Right. Well,
it's
I
easier
mean,
for you.
that's one thing that you talk about in the book, right? Talk to us about the superhuman sense of smell.
It is insane. Once they're pregnant, like, they can smell anything. You could have you, and I've done it before. I've cooked things in the house, eggs or fish or whatever it is, and then hours or days later, they can still smell it. And I've stopped smelling it for 10 minutes. We had over Christmas, we had, all the packaging, the plastic and cardboards and new smells and everything. Uh, and we thought that this new dirt bike that we got for my son was causing the smell to make my wife sick. And it turns out that it was fresh flowers
Mm.
in the house. And it took us like 2 days to figure this out, like what the smell was. And so we had to just get rid of all the fresh flowers, and I couldn't buy her flowers anymore the rest of the pregnancy.
Right.
So,
Right. Now, and I mean, how did that make you feel too? Because, like, I mean, you're like, you were just trying to do something nice, right?
right. Yeah. And luckily, like, I developed a lot of thick skin over the years from, being in the military and pregnancies and marriage for 9 years. But so I handled that one pretty well. But like early on in our relationship, I probably would have been a little upset about that after spending money on flowers, and then I have to just throw them away. So they're
Right.
brand new flowers.
Right. These flowers are fresh. I'm just gonna go put them in my car.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, I think that was also kind of funny too. Like, so the superhuman smelling, and I could relate to that because I made the mistake of cooking like some Indian food,
Oh yeah.
and my first of all, my wife is not a fan of it to begin with, and I did it while she was pregnant, and she so while I was reading the book and reading that, I was just laughing out loud because it's so true. And it's not that we as dads or guys aren't thinking of them. It's just sometimes we just don't think. We're just like, man, I just want an egg, or like you're saying, I just want some fish, and
Yeah. And
you
you don't
can't.
think about it because, like, most of the time it's things that you cook normally.
Right.
I mean, maybe not every day or something, but it can be just an everyday smell. She might, drink orange juice every single day of her life, and then one day she's pregnant and it makes her sick.
Right. Right. I think you talked about that too, right? So like even like or like going out and getting them the things talk about like how their taste may change.
Yeah, like they might just want crazy things. Like my wife was pretty tame with her cravings. She usually just wanted crushed ice from Sonic because they had the best ice. I don't know why, but
It had to be ice from Sonic.
it had to be ice from Sonic.
That's
So
great.
I would, in the early days, we couldn't afford the 36 cents for the
Yeah,
cup of water, but I would crush up ice for her with a little hammer or a can if I didn't have a hammer.
I know you were talking about that too, like the, and then the like if the bag would break sometimes, you'd like just like freaking out, right? Like, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
you're like and it's like your wife wants something, and you like it's just ice, and you're sitting there. I can only imagine, like, so I'm just sitting there thinking in my head how if I were to go out get a bag of ice, and I need to break it, and then it goes all over the place. I could just imagine my own frustration in doing that.
Yeah.
So you're a good man, Ben.
Yeah.
You're a good man. You're a good man.
That's all it takes.
That's but that's I mean that's a feat. Like, I mean, you even talk about I mean, I think it's a great book. First of all, again, I commend you for reading it, writing it. What I enjoyed was that like it really is especially from hindsight, like, but if it had been something like you're talking about giving this to your boys when they kind of go out into the world in their 30s and finally decide to have a relationship with the first woman ever, uh,
Yeah.
and say, here's a guide and kind of what to expect. Here's a couple things that these are some examples. You may be crushing bags of ice. You may be running out to Sonic. You may be going out getting flowers for your wife, thinking that you're doing the best thing ever, but it ruins the next 3 days of everybody's life, right? And it's not that she wants that to happen. She has no control.
No,
No control.
no, no, no.
I mean, I think, and you were talking a little bit about like even like I think there was a story over the holidays, right, where like she got a little grumpapotamus on
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah. We had to set her straight on that one. Just be like, I just sat her down and was like, hey, you are so grumpy about everything. You gotta tone it down. I know that, her family always comes in from out of town and we always love them being around, but towards the end of her pregnancy, she was just over everything and there was no filter anymore.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And hey, that's something to watch out for too, right? Like it's just. But there was another line there too that you wrote, just talking about and I'm definitely horrible. I was horrible at this. Was the it's look, man, their bodies are carrying a baby. It's hormonal. 99% of it's hormonal and angry from like their feet swelling up. Uh, but don't. What's the wrong thing to do in this situation? Tell me,
do,
what's the wrong thing to do here?
do not tell them they're being hormonal.
Yeah, I did
Just
that. Yeah.
recognize it and do something else, but do not let those words come out of your mouth.
What are some alternatives? How did first of all, how did you stumble upon the not to do it?
Oh,
And then
well,
and then what are some of the alternatives? Like, what did you find? What did you find that may have worked?
well, to start off with, what didn't work is telling her that she was being hormonal. That is something that I found out the hard way. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I
Right.
remember she was annoyed for a while.
That's great.
But yeah, I mean, it just depends on the situation. Um, I mean, if like let's take what happened with that Christmas that you were talking about, which was just last Christmas, and all of her family was in town. We were having a nice time, and she was just like throwing you know word grenades at everybody for for anything. And uh I could have easily just been like, you're being hormonal and you need to stop.
Right.
But she can't do that. She doesn't really know what's going on, even though it seems like she does. And if you're in that kind of situation, away from everybody, in private, just, hey, you know is there anything I can help you with? Maybe massage or something like that. Like,
Right.
let's take a few minutes, try to maybe relax her or something, and just not really bring up the hormonal part of it, and just try to help her and kind of change her, not change her mind, but change her attention off to something else.
Right. 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 No, I think that's a number one. Good advice. Great advice. Look, I suffer with that outside of the pregnancy. Um, it never goes well. But as I like to say often on the podcast, it's called Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I'm not a saint. I'm not perfect. I definitely have my flaws, and
Yeah.
um, even it's just like everybody. Even though we've got some flaws that we know need correcting, they don't always rise up on the priority list. Um, so I think that what you did there is a great example of just saying, all right, well, the simple and shortest answer is you're being hormonal and you're acting a little not the best way. But what you did in taking it and saying, I want to help you. I don't know what's going on. Here's how you're coming across to everybody.
Yeah.
What's up? Right. And just slowing it down and knowing firsthand experience has been just don't call it hormonal. That's bad. but having the awareness, I think, is awesome. You got to be aware that that's what's going on and be like, all right, don't address that. But here's the result of her being hormonal. Is everything out there? So say, hey, what you did there is great, and I think that's a great lesson for a lot of guys to take away. And I think there was another one in terms of uh, you talk. I'm not sure exactly if this was directly in line, but I know that you talked kind of like how she was, her body was growing, and you like walk by the bathroom. And here's what to. So tell us, tell us the situation and give us a what to do and a what not to do.
Yeah, so that one was early on in the relationship. So uh
Well, so right there, right. So I'm sorry about that. Early on in the relationship, meaning you got married and right away she was pregnant, right?
well, yeah, so we got married and she had already had a kid.
Right,
And so we got married and had a 5-year-old, so blended family immediately.
right,
And then I mean, I guess it was a honeymoon baby, because eight months later we had a kid,
right, right,
a month early. And yeah, so it was 4 5 months into our marriage that I walked by the bathroom, and I mean, I just see out of the corner of my eye that she's doing her makeup, and like I had not noticed the baby bump
right.
on her at that point. And um, I literally took a couple steps back, did a double take back into the bathroom, and was like, "Whoa, you're huge!"
Oh,
And
oh, oh.
then she closed the door, started crying, locked it, turned on the shower to hide the fact that she was crying.
Right,
It
right,
was just terrible, and I
right,
did not live that one down for years.
right, right. Yeah.
So
So
I
what do we do in that situation? Yeah, we noticed that she's and to now what were you trying to say to her?
I was trying to say, something to the effect of, you know, I didn't realize that the baby was getting that big, or we must be getting close to the end, or that kind of a thing. And she just took it as I thought she was fat.
Right. So yeah, gentlemen out there, be very careful with your word choices. Be very careful with your word choices, because my experience with my wife getting pregnant and being pregnant, I couldn't think of like anything more beautiful. Like to me, that's like she was the most attractive person to me while she was pregnant, just because I was thinking of, we created a child together, and what was kind of coming out of the whole situation was just this beautiful experience to me. And I just don't, and you talk a little bit about in the book about like, hey, now's not the time to stray type of thing, right, during the pregnancy. And there's never really, guys, just by the way, there's never a good time for that.
Yeah.
But to me, my personal experience with that was that it was an amazing, why would I go somewhere else? Here's a woman that's said, yeah, um, uh, this is going to come out wrong. So I know that she's listening to this, she'd probably get upset, but like, just carrying my child. That's, I mean, is there anything, a greater show of love than that? And to say that I've decided that, yeah, you can, like, I mean, that's a mutual decision that she's carrying your child. Is there anything more beautiful than that? I don't know. Not even my child, our child, right? So,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, talk a little bit about that, like, kind of what you wrote in the book in regards to that, right? You know, the not straying, right? I mean,
Yeah. I think that really kind of hits right on it. I mean, not straying away. It's pretty easy, I think. So I joined a group on Facebook. Uh, I think I can't remember the name of it, but there were like 40,000 dads on this group, and one of them posted not too far back, something about basically that uh, their wife was not gonna have sex basically for the rest of the time that she was pregnant.
right,
And I mean, it, he was pretty much asking like, should I go stray away, or should I stay here? Is this normal? I don't really want to stay here for 6 more months or whatever it was
right,
if she's not willing to do that. And I mean, it's a small time in the grand scheme of things. There's not 9 months for you to be able to kind of hold off is not that big of a deal. If you're talking about 20, 30 years of marriage down the road.
right,
And I guess that's kind of what I wanted to point out, because there's a large community of people, I guess, that think that it's okay to just kind of stray away, whether that's, an actual physical straying away, or, like just mentally or emotionally, where you're, going off looking at, like pornography or things like that, and everybody has their own decisions on it. But I
right.
figured I was writing the book and I got to make all the calls on whatever,
Right.
so.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely important to kind of point out. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you point out, like, I mean, these are like kind of baser instincts, right? We're men. We
Yeah.
should be able to kind of rise above um,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
this animal need that's probably put into us to procreate. And since you procreated, right now you've done your job, just sit back and relax a little bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, if yeah, absolutely. It I could have done a lot more complaining, and I did complain, I guess, more than I should have back in the first pregnancy and even the second one. And in hindsight, I wish I had overcome those baser instincts, a little bit better, and been more understanding of what my wife was going through and the changes of her body
Sure.
and all of that.
Sure, but I mean, hey, but that's you're writing the book, and you're letting people know, you're giving them, and it really
Yeah,
is.
I think I lost audio there.
You still,
I lost audio right after we had talked about kind of straying away and everything.
yeah. So we were talking. So we were talking about, like, and this kind of goes hand in hand with supporting your wife, or whoever you're with. Doesn't, I mean, you don't have to be married to have a baby. So, but if you're in a relationship with somebody and they're pregnant, you're not showing a strong support when your main focus is your own personal physical need, right?
Yeah.
And that, to me, speaks volumes about what you can expect later in the relationship, right?
Yeah,
um, and
absolutely.
and you had said that you had seen some people speaking to it in an online dads group. So it sounds to me like it'd probably be the Order of Man, if I'm not mistaken, like which said.
It wasn't them.
Oh,
No.
really?
But
There's another group with like 40,000 men and dads in it.
yeah, I think it was a bunch of dads. If I remember
Okay.
right. I can't remember if that's the name
I'll
of it.
I'll have to check it out. Bunch of dads. But so is that kind of where you like leaned back and wrote that part of the story when you'd seen the comment like that?
No, I didn't. That was actually after the book. But it had just, I guess, being, and maybe it wasn't necessarily just with being pregnant, but I guess with my travels, like with the military and just other things like that, and just life, I had seen a lot of people that were quick to stray away from their wives or their girlfriends or whoever it was, and I guess it's always something that's kind of stuck home with me.
I gotcha. Do you
So,
think that that's more of like an age thing? Like the younger guys are quicker to do it, or are you seeing it in all brackets?
I don't. I guess I really haven't studied it up that much.
Okay.
Maybe I need to look more into it, but um, I don't know. I don't know if there's a specific demographic that's more willing or less willing, but I, I guess the reason why I brought it up in the pregnancy book was just because that's probably the best time to do something like that, because women going through changes and everything, and their bodies just not acting or reacting the way that they want them to. There's just more of a chance that somebody could kind of stray off the path there.
I got you. Now that makes sense. And uh, I think, unfortunately, even in today's in American society, there may be a few women that give them the pass for that. And
Yeah,
I I uh, I just, for me, that wouldn't, I don't, doesn't sit well with me, right? It doesn't, again, and I'll just reiterate, like, my feelings on the fact was that what could be greater? What could be a greater honor than, your wife or your significant other or whoever you're with just says, I'm gonna carry, this is our child, what we're bringing into the world is like something amazing. And you can't wait like whatever period of time to
yeah,
go do whatever. And it's like, all right, it's just to me, it's an amazing insult. And it shows like an amazing level of something not right. I just don't,
yeah.
I don't know how to phrase it, right? Like, it just doesn't, it's not, what are you
I-
thinking?
yeah, it's, to me, it's incredibly selfish.
Right. Right.
So, like, you can't just kind of put yourself aside and think about somebody else for whatever time period, whether it's the whole 9 months or less or a little more. It's just, it's a blip in the grand scheme of things.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So again, I think this is again, a great start to what you're planning. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you're planning? Because this is Young Dad's Guide to Pregnancy. Are you working on something now? What's the follow up? And what's been the reception of the book?
So, I guess the first part of that question, what's the plan? right now, with the Young Dad's Guide to Pregnancy being kind of like more of a journalistic entry with, historic inputs there, looking at the same thing for newborns, toddlers, everything. I've got a newborn all the way up to a teenager right now. She's starting high school in a week, which
Mm.
I don't know what I'm going to do there.
Right,
But,
right. That's crazy.
Right. There's no guidebooks for it that I can find. So I'm going to try to write what I can.
Yeah.
What I'd like to kind of happen, at some point, and I've toyed around with it, is maybe not have it just be my voice, be voices of other dads. We see like celebrity dads sometimes in the media, talking about how they do things, but not that it's easier to be a dad if you have, tons of money, but I kind of want to hear it from. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. I want to know what like the average dad does. The dad working 9 to 5 and having to go on business trips and having to do this and that. Or the dad that, when I was first starting out, the dad that's working minimum wage job, making like $7.50 or $8 or whatever minimum wage is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that dad do it?
Right.
Because I've been there.
Right.
And then the reception of the book. I mean, people that have read it have enjoyed it. It's been mostly friends and family right now,
Right.
but there's been good reception. I'm taking things that there's some things that I can still improve on it, and at some point I'll release a second edition. Hopefully, make it more of an interactive book where you could almost record things for your kid to know.
Yeah.
Like I think it'd be kind of cool to know when my mom was pregnant with me, what made her sick and what made, this happen or what,
Right.
like was did I move around a lot? Those kinds of things. And I think that my kids will like that too.
Right.
I can tell them.
Well, that's absolutely, absolutely. I like that. I like that idea. Now, you said you journaled a lot through this last pregnancy in order to put the book together. Have you found that you're journaling more often in order to help you with the writing process? And how does that feel? I mean, were you a big journaler before, I guess is a good question.
I was a big attempted journaler before.
Okay.
I would journal for a month or two and then quit. But I wouldn't say I'm a big journaler now, but I'm more aware of the big things that need to be written down.
Okay.
Like
What would be?
what's good to remember and what's kind of something that I can just forget.
Right. What have been some of your big to remember aha moments?
Like with maybe it's because it's the last kid, but little things with him, like yesterday, for instance, he took out his passy with his own hand and then put it back in his mouth.
Right.
And for
First
anybody
time.
that's first time I saw anyway.
Right.
And I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. And I always forget the milestones.
Right.
So I can't remember if that's like normal or whatever. So but anything that happens like that, sitting up with their big old head that I don't know how they support,
Right.
things like that.
Right. Talk that for a moment for somebody this is Young Dad's Guide to Pregnancy, and if you never had a baby, talk a little bit about the big head thing.
Yeah, it seems like all the kids have just gigantic heads. I mean, I wish I had a picture to show to kind of drive home the point, but my son's head is just massive. And more so, 2 or 3 weeks ago when my wife sent me a video of him, starting to sit up
Right.
at about 3 months old, and you see him, he's like hardly holding his head up anyway, and then he's just like slowly tipping over and just falls over on the carpet, just bumped his head. It's just funny to watch. I don't know how they hold it up.
Right. No, it's like they're on it's like a spring or something, right? Like it's almost like a bobblehead. It's almost like you're watching a bobblehead with
yeah, absolutely.
And like but that's terrifying too, right? When you first had the baby, like you got to support their neck. You're like, oh my god, I hope his head. You're literally like, I hope his head doesn't fall off as you're holding
Yeah.
the baby.
I never like I was never really around babies when I was growing up, and
Right.
then at how old was I? 22 when I had my first encounter with a newborn.
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing. I thought it was like a porcelain doll and that it was gonna break if I touched it wrong.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and nobody was like, I mean, yeah, you hear the support the head or whatever, but you can't be prepared.
No. What we're so we get through the pregnancy. I'm just trying to think of some other highlights in the pregnancy. We touched on the cravings, touched on the super smell, touched on the hormonal. I think those are kind of the three biggest ones. Touched on like being supportive of your wife, and definitely not straying, guys. I mean, to me, honestly, you gotta take that and you gotta recognize that for the amazing thing that's happening in your life. And you know what, you had sex once, obviously, to get the baby, so you know what that's like. You're not missing too much, and you can catch back up on that later.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what would be some other elements of that book that you would want the listeners to hear, to know that this is a resource that's out there for them.
I think the two big things that I would probably say would be, the one is this whole like birthing plan thing.
Hmm.
You know, you're gonna have this awesome plan of going to the hospital, of having the baby, whether it's naturally or whatever. I mean, it's just you'll have your whole big plan laid out, and nothing's gonna go according to that plan.
Right.
'Cause, I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, if everything went according to our life plans, then I mean, everybody would be millionaires and have everything that they ever wanted. But
Sure.
I mean, every time that we had our little plan to go in there, I mean, uh, you can read in the book, like I thought that uh, on the second and fourth pregnancy for my wife, that I I literally thought she was going to die. And then on Ezra, I thought that I was going to lose Ezra too. I mean, he was like almost in the NICU, and I just had no idea what was going on. And I that was my fourth pregnancy, like fourth
Right.
delivery that I had been a part of, and I was just completely lost.
Right. No, that yeah, there's no real prep, for that.
Yeah.
I think with my wife, our first pregnancy was like, we were in the hospital for almost 12 hours, I think, before she delivered. And I don't think it was, and I think he came in upside down. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't inside of me, so I can't really speak to the whole thing, and my memory's not the clearest, because if you're in there, you're just overwhelmed, and you're like, wow, this is
Yeah.
crazy. And like you talk about, it comes out like it's this blue alien, and that was pretty funny too. Like it comes out blue, and it's like you're holding up, you're like, I'm gonna be the first dad with this blue baby for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and now I think and you said your wife hasn't let you live down not cutting the umbilical cord. You're still you're
Oh,
still
yeah.
you're still have you cut any of them?
No.
Oh man, it's okay.
Oh, no, no, I did on Ezra. I finally cut it. I was like, I
Right.
better do this right now,
How
or
weird,
she'll.
how weird is that feeling?
I thought it was kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, just you're
I was
you're
like,
you're
why?
separating. Oh, it's weird, and you're cutting through like this. It is a weird. It's, guys, if you've never done it, it's just, and you can't. It's almost indescribable. It's like, but you got to try it if you get the opportunity. You got to, and otherwise it'll be held over your head for the rest of your life, possibly. You don't
Yeah,
want that happening to you.
that's the only reason to try it, I'd say.
That's great. That's great. And we talked about we talked about a couple other things. I mean, it's awesome that you wrote the book. Again, guys, if any of anybody listening out there actually who is getting ready to be pregnant, I recommend this for women to give to their husbands or significant others.
Yeah.
If you're a lesbian, I recommend you get this so you know what you're up for. Anybody who's like, going through this experience, I think could really do well to pick this book up, because it really hit on I think just about everything you can expect from a pregnancy, and I think you handled it really well. So I applaud you again for putting it together.
Thanks
Um,
a lot.
absolutely. Now, just a few more moments here, and I'll keep you going. Um, we're talking about you're going to do the series. What was the overall impact that you had thought that in mind when you're writing this book? What were your thoughts?
Um, I guess I really never had a big thought about that. I just my thought on it was originally, I want to be able to help my boys out, and then and let them have my experiences. But and the tertiary effects you know, there's 7 billion people in this world. I can't speak to how many of them speak English or even as a second language, but I mean anybody that could pick this up and get something from it, I mean that's a win. I mean we
Right.
need. I think the family is probably the most central unit. However that family is defined by whoever picks it up. Uh, Having a strong family is the most important thing in this world, I'd say.
Right.
And so, if we can help that from the pregnancy on,
Right.
then hopefully I can do a little bit to kind of progress that.
Awesome. Man. That's awesome work. It's great stuff. Um, now, as we kind of wind down, I usually like to ask a couple of questions just towards the end here. One of them being, if your kids were to pick up this audio 10 years from now, and you haven't already put this in a book, what would you tell your kids 10 years from now? So what would you say to your future kids?
Don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, all of these material things can be replaced. Uh, just focus on the memories. Like especially if, for starting out a family, it's all about making those memories and not about just stressing about how you're gonna buy the next meal or you know make it through to the next paycheck or anything. 'Cause I think for the most part, dads have been in that stressed out situation, and you know just focus on making those memories.
Right on.
Everything else will fall into place at some point. As long as you're putting in the effort and the work, it'll work out.
Awesome. What what would you say like the top five, like I'm doing like the foundations of fatherhood, right? Like, and I would say for me, the top five things to focus on would be like, be adaptable, just show up, man.
Yeah.
But what would be like some of your top five items that you would tell fathers that they need to do and why?
I mean, I think first and foremost is going to be patience.
Mm,
I mean, for a number of reasons, uh, more than I could probably sit here and find out. But I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that kind of annoy you, and as a father, I would say, and it'd be easy to just fly off the handle sometimes, but having that patience paramount in dealing with kids and your wife and everybody.
yeah,
Uh, and then I think adaptability, like you said, is another real key point because there is no even the young dad's guide to pregnancy. I mean, or whatever the guide to is, you can't put it all in a book.
right.
So you're going to have to be able to adapt to those different situations. Um, I'd say, the next one would probably be like being a good adventurer, getting out of your comfort zone and just being able to be there for your kids. I mean, they've they've never experienced this world, so make them have fun, and just enjoy everything that they can.
Absolutely.
Uh,
I
and
like that one.
then yeah, and then don't be afraid to just be involved in things, whether it's you know whatever the kids kind of want to do for within reason. Like I've never been a baseball person or a real big sports fanatic, and my
Mhm.
son loves baseball, and so I let him kind of pursue that. If he wanted to pursue something else, then that's fine. If he wanted to be whatever, and it's the same with all my kids. I try to be as involved as I can with my daughter's cheerleading,
Right.
even though I don't know what that is. But
What now? I think that's I think that's an important one. You want to talk just a second about, why would you support them so much in something that you're not that interested in?
I mean, everybody's got their own different interests, and I think that even though, like, I don't, maybe he will be, but I don't think my son will be, a major league baseball player. I don't think my daughter's going to be like a competition cheerleader making, however much they can make or whatever. But I think it's good to kind of let kids pursue their dreams and do what they kind of want to do. If you can afford it, if you can, afford the time and energy, then let them kind of pursue things so they can test their own boundaries, and they can see that you support them and that you care enough that you would let them kind of go out and fly on their own.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
think
I
it's
like that.
I just think it's really important for the development of, the kids, of the dads, of the whole family unit.
No, that's great. And I would say from my, just from my viewpoint, that you writing your book and believing in yourself and publishing it's a great example of somebody kind of going for their dreams. Uh, Personally,
Yeah, well, thanks. I hope so.
yeah, yeah. We want to rattle off one more for us, or
Um, I'm trying to think if I can figure one out. I'd say, I don't know exactly how this one fits in with the rest of them, but there's always time. You
Hmm,
know, just read that one little story for your kids, or as one of them
right
adds
on,
in behind there.
right on.
But yeah, just take 5 minutes for your kids,
Yeah,
spending a little bit of time with each one of them.
nice, nice, absolutely. Yeah, I think that there's always some time, and I think that uh, I've seen a line recently. You saying that there's no time means that that's not a priority,
Right.
and so we were just kind of take a look at that a second time, and it's not easy too
No.
making that making that call, right? Be like, I got to do some work versus something else. It's not it's hard. It's hard. So I mean, I can appreciate both sides of that. Both sides of that. All right, brother. So again, I want to commend you for writing the book. It's called Young Dad's Guide to Pregnancy.
Yeah.
Guys, where should people go to look for you?
So yeah, you can go to Amazon. Just type in "Young Dad's Guide to Pregnancy." Follow me on Instagram at Young Dad's Guide. Um, I'm not doing a whole lot with the Facebook page right now, but I'm on there. Just kind of trying to focus a little bit more on writing that next book.
Hmm.
But yeah, Amazon or Instagram would be the best ones right now.
Okay. And do you recommend anybody just kind of reach out to you? Who are you trying to hear from? Anything like that?
Pretty much anybody. I mean, I'll respond as quick as I can. I mean, everything goes through to my phone, so I'm usually real fast on responding to people.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
if anybody needs, maybe some tips or tricks on being a dad, I mean, I'm not perfect, but if I don't know it, I'll try to find it out or find somebody that has that experience to help out with.
Awesome. Awesome. Very, very cool. Thanks again for hopping on with us. I know you're on vacation, and I just appreciate you taking the time and sharing, taking the time to write the book, which was awesome, and getting on here to share with the rest of the audience out there.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for letting me talk about it.
Absolutely.